Now, an ambulance crew was early on Wednesday morning robbed at gunpoint in Dobsonville in Soweto.
And this, of course, is not the first time that paramedics and emergency workers had been robbed while trying to attend to patients. This is in a way becoming a growing trend, and it is concerning because it makes it extremely difficult for paramedics to come out and save lives. Since the turn of the year, there have been many cases where paramedics have been the target of armed robberies. This week alone, there have been at least 3 reported robberies involving ambulance crews. Last Wednesday, paramedics were shot and wounded during a fake call in Inanda, Kwazulu, Natal, and in Paarl in the Western Cape. A crew of paramedics were accosted by armed robbers. The union representing these emergency workers want the crews to be escorted by the police when attending to calls. Now, we look into this issue, which is also, of course, the subject of our question of the day. We would like to hear from you. How do you think these continued attacks on paramedics will affect services that are rendered to communities? We have in studio here in Johannesburg, Johannesburg Emergency Services spokesperson Robert Molautsi. We were supposed to be joined by the union representing emergency personnel, but they're not here. Nonetheless, we have Reverend Naidu. He's the National Director responsible for emergency medical services at the Department of Health, and he joins us now live from our studios in Pretoria. Good afternoon to you, gentlemen, and thank you so much for coming through.
Good afternoon.
Start with you.
Afternoon,
the incident in Dobsonville in Soweto, what happened there?
Yes, 2 of our paramedics were actually held on gunpoint and robbed their belongings. They were responding to a medical emergency in Dobsonville extension when 2 unknown men came through and they held them at gunpoint. They demanded their belongings. They took their wedding rings, their cell phones, and some of the equipment which was inside the ambulance, and also the money which they had with them. Yeah.
Was it a fake call when this happened? Were they responding to a genuine call?
No, with us, Palisa, in most of the times, these attacks occurs when we're attending to a genuine cause. Like for instance, 2 weeks ago, we had another incident in Jeepies Town where 2 of our paramedics, similar incident occurred there in Jeepies Town when they were held on gunpoint and also robbed of their belongings when they were attending to a maternity case. So you need to understand that even on this incident, they had to, run for their life together with the patient on during this incident which we're talking about now, on which occurred the early hours of yesterday morning. So these kind of incidents are really creating panic and fear amongst us as emergency services, because you don't know what is going to happen when you respond to these emergencies. And also they disrupt service delivery, because it means now we will have to look at whether we can continue to take a chance, to go and respond to this without knowing that our safety is guaranteed. And it also affect our response time, because if we have to go via a police station, police are also having their own responsibilities of taking care of crime and other issues. They might not have a police van. I can give you a practical example. In the city of Johannesburg, we've got about 30 fire stations. Out of these 30 fire stations, we have got more than 1 ambulance. So you can imagine how many police vans are supposed to be escorting all these ambulances which are on the road 24/7. So
and they have their mandate as
exactly.
Well
so it's a very difficult situation for us.
And I think the question really is, because this is not a new thing.
Yes.
It's been happening for quite some time now. The question is, what is the department doing about this? Mr. Naidu, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for coming through. As I said, this is a new and not a new phenomena. The department's response to the attacks.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. You'll find that the number of attacks has increased over the number of years, and it's unfortunate because EMS provides a vital service and contributes towards what we want to see in the country in terms of universal health coverage. We take healthcare, and we're often going to the most vulnerable populations and treating those type of patients. So what we have seen, and this is in the more recent years, is that people are being attacked. And it's in terms of the nature of the calls and what we are looking at, it's almost like it's opportunistic crime. We see that if we have to understand why this is happening, it's usually happening in areas where there's poverty, there's issues of high substance abuse, there's crime in particular areas, gangsterism, and so on. And those are socioeconomic problems that we have. So there are a number of steps that have been undertaken over the period of time. Collectively, there are 4 focus areas. We focus on the EMS crew, the staffing, then we focus on the community, then we focus on the technology available, and we focus at management. And each one of those, there are various strategies, and I'll focus on the staffing. The first is for staff to be aware that at one stage where the community will protect EMS personnel because you're there to help them, unfortunately, there are those criminal elements in the community. We see opportunity when EMS crew arrive into a community, etc. And often it's under the guise of there's a patient needing help and that, and sometimes, and very often it's hoax calls and so on. So you've got to increase awareness amongst the EMS personnel. Try not to have expensive items on yourself, minimize those sort of risks. And then when you are entering into an area, and this is where as EMS personnel, we're always focusing on the patient and the health care that we wish to render, that you almost don't see that you're walking into a trap. So we have to now make ourselves more aware of those sort of situations and increase awareness, increase observation, so we can take the necessary evasive action. When it comes to the staff as well, for those staff that are affected, we need to immediately intervene, and there's a number of strategies that have been implemented across the country in terms of that. There's immediate notification, there's officer support, you get the staff that are affected, you get medical assistance and medical care, and then thereafter to follow up with the counseling, etc., and then the ongoing reintegration of the staff member back into the service and the operations.
No, Mr. Knight, but if you say that, let me just come in there, apologies. If you say that the staff members must also be cautious of the environment, how do you even know if it is a fake call or a real call? That's the question, I think, here.
Your question is an absolutely appropriate one. It is extremely difficult because you're going on the premise that there is a person that needs help, needs assistance. And that is what our responsibility is to provide that health care to the patients and to the community out there. So there are ways in which you can try to minimize this, but there are no foolproof mechanisms, and that's for sure. But one of the things that you do is that you start to analyze what are the trends over the period of time. There are certain areas that are more prone towards this, and we've seen this work quite effectively in the Western Cape. There are areas that you call hot zones, and they are very prone to having attacks on EMS personnel. So what you would do if you get a call from that area, then you would call back to the callers. You'll have people in the community leaders that you engage with to see if this actually is a real call. And as the crew are proceeding,
the person can even lose their life in the process. If you were to talk to a number of people, but Robert, help me here. If you were to verify if the call is a genuine one, really a person may even go as far as losing their lives.
Yeah, for me, I think that if these kind of incidents keep on continuing, I think our principals need to take radical decisions whether we must continue to render the service. Because for me, I've been in the service for about 20 years now. I know that when I raise up my hand, I know that my kind of work is dangerous by its nature. Yeah. I understand that. But I believe that our residents, they are the most important stakeholder. They are the ones who are supposed to look after us so that we can be able to look after them. Because, Palisa, the people we're talking about who are criminal elements, they're not coming from somewhere, from the sky or heaven or wherever.
From the communities
they are within the community. So you find Palisa walking around with a medical bag which she can't even use. So you need to understand, no man, you need to ask Palisa, where did you get this kind of bag? So we are saying in the communities there's already your forums, like a community policing forum, the street committees. There's a whole lot of organizations which are operating. We need to work together because the issue of us, there's a lot of people who are saying, no, maybe now Mlauzi, you must start carrying firearms and things like that. It's not going to help us.
That is what the union is calling for.
How are we going to be able to use that firearm? Because when we respond to an emergency, Palesa, you are injured. We don't focus on other things. We're focusing on you. When are we going to get an opportunity to use that firearm?
Let me ask you this question.
Even the people who are trained, like law enforcement officials, they are being attacked with those loaded guns. What about us? And the second part is, if you start encouraging paramedics to take firearms, now you are contradicting the whole thing. Now it means that you are actually misinforming the communities out there now that paramedics are now law enforcement officers now. They are, you understand. So so we are there to assist our communities. So us, carrying guns is not going to help the situation. We're saying to our residents, we have raised up our hands. They need to work with us so that we are protected. But however, our principals, I think it's high time now that if the area is dangerous, they must assure us, guaranteed us. If they can't guarantee our safety for us to go into an emergency, we need to say, no, we can't, up until our residents take charge of their area, because it doesn't help.
Let me ask you this question, Bomolotsi. Do you think the Department of Health has a plan to address this challenge?
I think they do, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
What plan do they have?
Because for instance, now, I mean, the issue of, for instance, like in the city of Johannesburg, what is happening now? We are taking advantage of like your community meetings where residents are meeting, discussing about issues which affect them in the communities, where we are addressing them. I can confirm that I've been part of those meetings. But you find that even the residents, somehow they are saying, we cannot be able to look after you because we're also in danger in most of these incidents. Because in most of the time, areas where we're responding to areas which are very much dangerous. Some of the areas, they don't even have like streets, and there's no even, you can't even see where you
at
go
night,
exactly. So it's a situation whereby we need to work together, all of us. We don't have to blame each other, but we have to work together so that we can find solutions.
Just put that question to Mr. Naidu as well. The plan, does the department really have a plan to address this problem, or are we just going to say these are unfortunate incidents really, and that's it?
Now, it's not acceptable for us to accept it as though there's no plan, and we cannot do that. Robert is absolutely correct on many points that he's raised in this discussion. There is a plan. There are several interventions that are from a national point of view, at provincial, at local government level, within the communities. There's use of technology in that. But Palesa, I must tell you, no matter what we do, it's never going to be enough, because one attack is too many on our EMS personnel. The issues that we talk about is not because people want to just attack EMS personnel. This is opportunistic crime that we have in our country. This is a societal issue. There are people that will attack EMS personnel because it's opportunistic, and these EMS personnel may have something of value that they can sell so they can go and get the next drug fix. Or it's, as pointed out by Robert, it will be in areas where there's poor lighting, there's gangsterism that is taking place, and the community feel, or the EMS may be just driving into an area where there's service delivery protests, and they see the EMS as an agent or an organism of government, and then attack and stone their ambulance. These are incidents that do take place, and they are random, they're across the country, but for where there are trends, then there are mechanisms and the systems that are proactively managed.
Well, Mr. Naidu, the South African
as an example.
Let me just come in there. The South African Emergency Personnel Union are not very happy with the Department of Health, and we have the president now in studio, Mr. Mpho. I've actually lost count of the number of media releases that have been issued by your office talking about the same issue. This week alone, I've seen about 3 or 4 media releases from the incidents that occurred in different places and different provinces.
Yes, that's true. We issued so many media releases because we are not happy about the way in which department they are doing things, and every time they always talk about the plan, and we are very much disappointed because their plan that they are having They never implemented the plan.
What's the plan? Talk to us about the
We
plan.
never saw, actually there's nothing in a way, but every time when they go to the media, they'll say they have a tangible plan. So we are saying it is high time for them to implement it, because last year there were so many attacks, and from last year they've been telling us that there is a plan, there is nothing. They don't have a plan.
So do you not feel like you failed your members? You failed to protect them, because here we are sitting here talking about 3 incidents this week, one in the Western Cape, one here in Gauteng, and the other one in Kwazulu Natal. How do you feel as the union? Have you not let your members down?
Not necessarily that we have let our members down, because we are engaging the department. We have proof, we have records that we've been writing.
But someone can say talk is cheap. What have you done as the union?
Basically, you will understand that we are working as emergency and is essential service. So that's why the department is taking us for granted. But because currently as we speak, our members were saying, let's stop the service, specifically during the night, because we are not safe during the night. But if you think about destitute community members who desperately in need of ambulance, obviously you might not quickly rush and take that particular decision or a mandate. So that's why we decided to wait and engage them, because they have powers. We don't have powers. We can't change anything. We are trying our level best to engage them, to sell our ideas, specifically to try and minimize the attacks.
Talk to us about those ideas quickly.
First one is the issue of the clinics. We are saying the clinics must operate 24/7, so that, because the nurses currently they are not working 24/7 because the department is not paying them. So if the clinics can operate 24/7 and the ambulance will collect the patient from the clinic, because currently as we speak, clinics they have security. So that will be easier, because if you can check, most of the attacks they are happening on the street when our members are doing door-to-door collections. So that is where we encounter some challenges. And second one, we are saying the department must make sure that they install the cameras and the panic buttons. Because, for instance, if I can be specific and talk about the incident that happened in KZN, that perpetrator managed to get inside the ambulance. If there was a dashboard camera there, obviously we'll be speaking something different. You should have been arrested as we speak. And we are very much worried, because the department, they are not intending to do anything, because they care more about the ambulances, not about the members. Because if they were stealing ambulances, I'm quite certain that they should have done something currently as we speak.
Mr. Naidu, do you not care about the members, the emergency crew really? SAIPU has engaged you on numerous occasions and you're not coming on board.
No, that's not true. A lot of the information that is being presented is a misrepresentation. I don't think it's a true reflection of the measures and the steps that are actually in place.
But have you never had meetings with them? Have you had meetings with the union?
Yes, we've had 2 meetings with the union that you are speaking about. One several years ago on matters that were slightly different, and last year in December when the union made a position statement. We do have information, and we would encourage the labor unions to engage with us, because this is not an issue that is only for government. This is not an issue that is only for the South African Police Services or labor unit. It takes a multifaceted approach on multiple organizations and stakeholders to be able to address this issue. Many issues that were raised by the labor union now, if you look at the issues of the clinics are being attacked when they are operated on 24-hour basis, despite being at times having security guards or being co-located. Hospitals are being attacked with intact security services, etc. Our EMS are vulnerable by the very nature of the work that we do. There are panic buttons that have been installed in ambulances, not nationally, but in areas where these attacks happen more frequently. There are systems in place that if you touch the panic button on the radio, it keeps the radio systems on all the time. The systems of the cameras are being looked at. You have to also balance it out. As we have the safety issues, there's also the issue of the patient confidentiality and the protection of the patient's identity. There's all of those factors that are there. There's other investigations and other items that are now available, like body cameras, personal body cam, panic buttons, etc. These are all being looked at, and to look at the feasibility and the practicalness of being able to use those things. It's,
I'm
you know,
afraid
it's
we've run
easy
out
to
of
say-
time, but I'm afraid we've run out of time, but I just want your parting shot.
Yeah, basically, I think maybe I'm residing within South Africa. What he's saying is totally not correct. Why I'm saying that is because our members currently are using their own personal cell phones to take emergency calls. See, if he's saying they're having radios and so forth, there's nothing. He can be specific. Maybe he's talking about private
Okay, maybe I
ambulances.
can bring you in back quickly, Mr. Naidu. Do you want to respond to that quickly? We don't have time.
Yes, most certainly. There are areas, and I said this is not implemented nationally. There are areas where this is taking place. Not every single ambulance crew has that.
Well,
now we have prioritized and focused on those areas of hotspots.
Which areas
where
are those?
the
Are
crew
you
very
able
vulnerable.
to point at those areas? Which provinces? Which areas
Yes,
specifically?
we've implemented in Eastern Cape. It's been implemented in the Western Cape as examples for those areas that have been hotspots.
Let me come in quickly. We are working nationally, and we know there were so many attacks in Eastern Cape, Port Elizabeth. There's nothing. There's no panic button in Eastern Cape. We must come clear. There is nothing. They don't have a plan, these people, because they're taking us for granted. So we must not mislead the people, the community.
They don't have a plan, but why are you calling for your members to carry arms when they respond to calls?
Exactly.
Are they going to be law enforcement officers at the same time, the emergency officers?
Yeah, a very good question. We tried our level best to engage them. So we're saying our members must make sure that they protect themselves, because we realize that there's
Protect
no...
themselves in what way? To carry arms? When
Exactly. That was our position, and
are
it's
you
still
not
our position.
endangering their lives?
No,
even more?
we are
Because
not.
The criminals would know that they're
let
carrying
me
weapons.
let me tell you something. Since we have issued the statement, if you can check the records from last year, these incidents were happening almost on weekly basis. After we've issued that statement, that Mr. Naidu said, he intimidated me that he's going to open a case against me because I'm inciting violence. I said, no, let's pilot this thing because we don't have a plan. Currently, as we speak, this thing, since last January till now, there was no incident, because the very same perpetrators, they watch TV and they listen to radio. They realize that now we are going to act against them, because
Time
there's no formula
constraints.
for
I'm afraid we've run out of time.
All right.
We'll leave it at this for now, but of course, this is a discussion for another day. Thank you so much to you, Mr. Naidu. Mr. Mpokheng, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Taking a quick break, would love to hear from you regarding this conversation, which of course it is the subject of the question of the day.